Our guest today is one of the preeminent voices in soccer in North America. He has worked at places like ESPN and Fox Sports in the past, spent the last 5 seasons doing play-by-play and creating content for LAFC, and is now a play-by-play announcer for MLS Season Pass. It is Max Bretos. Max, thanks for joining us, man.
Oh, that's a lot. That felt good. I go, yeah, man. I've clocked in there, so it's good. Great to be with you guys.
Yeah. So I'm a person who there's some people who give nicknames or like shorten people's names. I'm a person who has the the instinct to lengthen people's names or to call them by their more formal names. And so I was looking at your name, Max, and I was like, what is his full name? And I looked it up, and it is like an all-time Maximiliano. I think that is like a top tier name in names in the world.
It took me about till at the age of 16 before I could spell it correctly. There's a lot of I's. So it's true. And I'd write there, I can't even spell my own name because it's you. And then when you write it down, I remember I had driver's licenses where I forgot to put an I in because there's 3 of them. And then it caused problems. So yeah, I actually have 4 middle names too. It's crazy. And my brother and sister, we all have these really long names, but they're fun at parties to kind of share.
You've always been Max, though.
Max, yes.
There's
a lot of Maxes now. When I was a kid, there weren't Maxes. It was a name you gave your dog. So everyone's calling their kids Max now, which is great because we're a fraternity. We're connected.
My favorite cat was named Max.
Exactly. And I don't want to insult cats or dogs, but their brains are a little smaller than us. You can't call them Maximiliano. Call them Max so that they can understand. I'm not shitting light on it, but it just makes sense. All animals, really. Shorter, the better.
Maybe a Maxi or something like that. But,
Maxi. That's my son's name. That's because he's a Maxi.
Oh, nice.
A Maxi. And actually, most of I think some of these Argentinian players like Maxi Rodriguez and Maximiliano Urruti.
Yeah.
My Maxi. So I should be Maxi, but it's just Max.
So you were saying that you've been having weird audio stuff all day. Jeremiah is once again, I think this is like 5 out of 6 of these that he's done from a hotel room this season. I had internet outages in my neighborhood, so I'm back in my office right now. So we're all kind of scrambling. You've been traveling a lot for work, for your work with MLS Season Pass on Apple TV, working with Brian Dunseth, who I don't know what your relationship with him was in the past, but he's a guy who I didn't get to see his work a lot, but whenever Austin would play RSL and I get to watch a rewatch on ESPN Plus of his games or just watching random games here and there, he's a guy whose work I really, really like. So what has it been like working with Brian and just the Apple TV experience in general?
I mean, we kind of disguise it, but we can't stand each other.
He seems like a hard guy to get along with.
He's awful. He has body odor. He rolls in at the last minute, right before kickoff. Very unprofessional. Brian is, I've known Brian a long time. He actually, I think he did his first soccer broadcast with me when I was at Fox Soccer Channel. And I guess when they announced the pairings and I heard it was Brian, we both texted each other and had a great chat because it was very comfortable. And I would have looked forward to working with anyone, but working with Brian made the transition very easy because we've worked so much in the past and we're friends. We know each other's families and we spend a lot of times on this road and have some good memories. So it's been very easy and it's to start this next chapter with him. I mean, he picks me up at the airport. He picks me up at the hotel sometimes when I'm doing a Salt Lake game, and generally we'll have dinners together. And it's very easy. So I really appreciate Brian. Hope he doesn't hear this because he'll probably take it the wrong way. But it's been very nice.
So you're on the call with Brian for Austin at Portland this weekend. Let's talk a little bit about the Timbers. I picked them probably entirely too high in our little MLS team draft because I believe that future success is a prediction, past success is a prediction of future success. And it's not been quite that way for them. But so there's I think Evander, the Brazilian attacking player they've signed, is starting to find his feet, looks really good. Diego Chara's 37 and still kicking. And then, but a lot of that, other than that, it's I feel like guys are starting to slow down. Who does Austin need to pay attention to? And sort of who are your highlights and star players for Portland?
Well, I'm excited to do Austin this weekend. This will be my first Austin FC game for Apple TV. This is going to be my 4th Portland game, so I have a better idea of what to expect. And I mean, a lot was put on Evander when he came in here. He was their record signing. He has all the credentials, but it just didn't click for him. And watching their game, maybe their best result going to St. Louis and getting a victory, where Jimmy Chara, pardon me, who got injured in the first week of the season, is back and he scored. They've had a lot of injuries up front. Different guys playing in the attack role. Yaroslav Niezgoda. You had who is the Brazilian guy whose name is
Nathan Fogasa.
Nathan Fogasa, who has been, to me, although he didn't get off the bench this week, to me, in that first stretch of season games where they're struggling, he was maybe their best player. He was just like a jolt of energy and very good. But then they needed Dairon Asprilla. They waited for him to come back. He eventually did come back. I don't think he was playing this weekend. And then with the Chara, and the key was Evander. They needed Evander to start playing. He's starting to show it. He got a goal. It was a penalty. But I think even what I saw, you could see that he's settling in a bit. It's such a crazy, and Austin knows this too. You invest in these DPs and guys that that have to deliver for you. They have to provide the star power. They got to provide the goals or whatever they do. And Evander's that. I mean, he's going to come in. He's going to take every set piece. He's going to get this attack going. And I think that's the guy that you hope, if you're Austin, doesn't get into that groove on Saturday, which I'm expecting it to happen for Evander. So I think that's a guy that you need to keep an eye. Frank Boley's been a breath of fresh air. He scored a big goal for them in Dallas, a game I did call, and now he's also in the starting sweepstakes. I would say Evander number one, but the right side, Juan David Mosquera, who, based on all accounts, getting a lot of interest from European clubs. He's an under-22 initiative. He's been great all season. He's been called up to the Colombian squad. Granted, it was that January camp. And then Santi Moreno, who sometimes on that right side too. That's where, if those guys can have some dominance coming up the right, Portland will have success. But they were getting healthy, and then they got less healthy. But they're definitely better off now than they were at the beginning of the season, and putting some good results together as a result.
So going back in the history of this matchup, there were 12 goals in the first 3 games. Most of those going to Austin, thankfully. But then the last 2 games in the matchup played out a bit more how you thought they would, especially them being last season, with Austin controlling more of the ball, Portland kind of doing what they do, sitting a little bit deeper and trying to catch Austin on the counter or with set pieces, and it worked for them. It was successful. How do you think Josh Wolf should approach this game, knowing that that is a thing that Portland are good at and like to do in certain situations? Do you think Portland will try that being at home? And do you think Josh Wolf will be flexible enough to maybe try to counter it, or is he just going to stick to his guns and try to play their game and do what they do?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think when you're Austin, you figure anytime you go on the road, you're going to have a matchup that is going to maybe be a little more conservative on your end. But I think this is an opportunity for Austin to stretch their legs out a bit, possess a little bit more, see if they can get Sebastian Driussi going. Obviously, I know Austin's had injury issues as well, which has forced a lot of pretty significant adjustments in their 11. You just got to I think Austin can be aggressive without taking too many risks. If we see like their fullbacks getting up and that space starts opening up behind them, it could be a problem, and Portland will be ready to pounce. But you know what you're going to get from Portland. I think it's going to be a very I think it would be more on the aggressive side for Austin if it's allowed to do it. They have some of the horses when fully fit. Granted, that may not be the case, but they just got to be careful with the mistakes, as everyone does. But I think with if Portland's going to lay some traps, just see where they are and kind of push forward. And Austin is Portland has not had the great home form this season that they've had. Granted, they had that great win over Seattle, and then it looks like they're getting better, but they have dropped some points along the way. So I think there's an opportunity there for Austin to get after it a bit.
Yeah, and Portland's been fairly leaky defensively too, right? I think they're second in the West in goals allowed. Like, what do you attribute that to? And is that something Austin can take advantage of, or does that come back to sort of the health and maybe they're just like they'll solve that through having people on the field.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, they always it started at the beginning. They gave 5 goals to Atlanta, the 3-2 game to LAFC. I still like their defensive effort. I mean, they've had some issues with Ivicic was injured, and then David Bingham came in and he got injured. So I'm not putting it on the goalkeeper, but they really haven't had a clear number one. Zach McGraw. I mean, I like the personnel defensively. Zuparic is a guy who's is been there, done that, and Zach McGraw, to me, one of the better young defenders that Portland's been able to develop, and I like them. And they've made some mistakes in some of these games, and that's kind of, I think, where they've kind of gone awry. But to me, it feels like they're trending in the right direction. They have they should get a good defensive record going, and I think we're in the midst of that as well with what we've seen. Although I would tend to think that defensively they're going to be pretty rigid. I like the personnel. They just got to get a little deeper. They got to get a little more depth in certain positions. Mosquera gets up a lot. They've played him as a winger sometimes. Maybe they want to put a little more cover and put a different guy at right back if they anticipate a game that's going to be against an opponent that's going to get after it a bit. But I think Timber fans in that should be pretty optimistic. I don't want to get the Austin crowd too pessimistic, but just having a close look at Portland, I think they got to be pleased about the different areas. And if with some of the guys returning from injury, if they can get a couple more of those dudes, they should be, and I heard about your prediction there, Jeremiah, and I did the same thing. I think I had them 3rd or 4th, and they didn't look like that club that would start that high, but they might get there by season's end.
Yeah. Can you expand on the keeper thing? I'd forgot about that. Like we talked about how much I travel. I happened to be staying at the same hotel that Portland was staying at when they played in Dallas, and Bingham was there. I don't remember if that was the game he went down or not, but like, is Ivicic like a big downgrade or?
No, Ivicic would be the number one. Ivicic
was so good last year.
Yeah, but I know it didn't come out, and there was he didn't start some games, and there was some reports of injury, and I would imagine that's the case. But there was something that just didn't click right there, and that opened the door for Bingham. And the Bingham injury was, I want to say, against Seattle. I'll scroll down here, where, or maybe it was the Galaxy. It was the Portland Galaxy game, where it was a late flag, and Bingham came over and then really messed up his hamstring. And once you saw it, you knew it was bad. Then it was a late flag. It popped up there, and luckily Ivicic, I think, came in and started really taking the job under his wing at that point. But it wasn't really locked down for any stretch. They have Bingham's not back yet, but so it hasn't been a revolving door there at goalkeeper. But Ivicic was always going to be the number one, but he wasn't really. He left the door open. Whatever he was doing, whether he was injured, whether he was a little disconnected, it opened the door for David Bingham. But that's a big spot for them. If Ivicic can be the guy like last year and log up and eat up those minutes and get some clean sheets, Portland's going to be very good.
So we haven't really done this before, but I think it's maybe an interesting thing to do. You're going to be our guinea pig here, Max. So we want to give some space to the folks we have on to maybe ask some questions.
Last time I heard that, it didn't end well for me. I'm just kidding.
we know that you guys are covering a lot of teams, traveling around every week. Do you have any thoughts on Austin? Any questions about Austin that you would want to ask us?
Yeah, I talked about Evander for Portland, and it's just like those big signings, the pressure of getting those guys to, hit their spots and be contributors. And I think with Austin, the big storyline has always been Rigoni, Emiliano Rigoni. And I know there's some displeasure, but I mean, it would appear, he scored a goal. I think that was good this weekend. And you see baby steps towards there, but I wonder what the thought is about Rigoni and where he was and where he's going. And does he feel more like that big signing that can help Austin, because they need that extra player. And obviously with Fagundes out, they need somebody that can help shoulder the burden with Driussi and whoever else up there, Urruti, because goals have been a little bit harder to come by.
I bet you have thoughts on that one, Jeremiah.
I was hoping you would give the more reasonable opinion on this, Landon, first before we did this.
But there's been frustration, I can tell.
Yes. So I'd say, I've been super frustrated. I feel like I speak for a large part of the fan base that is, I guess a little bit like before this last week, there was 15 games with no goal contributions, right? So that was like in his career in Austin, which is super frustrating. And if you go back and look, he has not been really productive on the stat sheet long term. So I still have a lot of questions about like the quality of that investment. And I know Driussi loves him, and there's probably some connection there, but I think a lot of us would like to see a lot more out of him before we're willing to be happy with that. And that's just been one of the big issues with like the designated player signings in general. Like Thomas Pochettino was a designated player in the first year.
That's a bad one. Yeah.
That was a
we
bad
all
one.
had when we saw that, I go, that's going to be a good signing. And it didn't turn out to be.
Yeah. And so then Rigoni and then Alex Ring has been up and down. It wasn't even going to be a starter this year until Cascante went out. So it gets led to a lot of questions about the roster build in a league where the designated player is the most important thing, right? Like you often live and die by how they succeed or fail.
Yeah, and I'll add to that just saying, like, I think Rigoni can be a useful piece if he's in the right situation in the right moment. He can be useful. He can be a good player, but I am kind of past the point to ever believing that he's going to be worth the money he's on and how much they paid in that transfer fee. I think that's like done, but I think he can still be useful. And I think this last weekend was a little bit of a sign of how that might look.
Yeah, it's funny because I have some Brazilian friends and they're huge Sao Paulo fans, and Rigoni is, I mean, really well regarded there. I mean, they love him. They go, Rigoni. And this was a guy who, based on what they tell you, he should be one of the best players in Major League Soccer, and that transition hasn't really clicked for him. And sometimes it takes longer for guys. I think we saw that with Driussi too. It took a little bit, and then he clicked, and now he's got a nice fat new contract. And
yeah, I watched a lot of tape of Rigoni at Sao Paulo, and they just played a lot of like hero balls deep and just had him run onto him. And he can create little moments of magic sometimes, but the style here is so different that I can imagine it's a pretty big culture shock. But yeah,
that's a great observation. That's a great observation, Landon. You can kind of disguise maybe the talent. I still think he's a good player. We got to do it. And then I guess the other one's Jossie Zardes. I mean, that has to be a disappointment that he just Jeremiah's not. He said, I mean, I am shocked. I saw that signing in the offseason. I go, this is going to deliver. That's exactly what they need. And no goals.
I think on last year's team he would have delivered, but we're broken for some reason this year. And then I think also he's like maybe gotten old in the last year too. He looks that way a little bit.
Yeah. And for us, it was hard because we interviewed him right before the season started and like just loved, like he's a beautiful human. Yeah. Everything he said about the way he played was like so positive, encouraging. And we were just like ready to love him and ready to have him just like rain goals. And that hasn't turned out. So I think it's like personally disappointing because it's like he's such a good person. Like, and everybody's cheering for him and he's just not putting it together on the field.
And I'd be patient with both those guys. You can't afford to be patient. I think Austin, finishing second last season was they were very good, but I mean, things really fell in place for them. I mean, when you look at expected goals and all the other stuff, which is not an exact science, but you could see that they exceeded all of that, and they won a playoff round. This was an incredible season to be one of the Final Four teams at the end, and I always knew it was going to be hard to match that, and obviously they haven't come close. But I think it's a club you can be patient with. The forgiving playoffs will out, and I think Austin, obviously, not going to finish second, not going to probably compete for a CCL spot or a major trophy in the regular season. But look, when October, November rolls around, and maybe they find those pieces in a summer market. I don't think they have to be big pieces, DP type pieces. Obviously, they're very limited, but you can find some of these guys that can give them depth. Because I think depth, you look at the guys coming off the bench, you're like, you wish you had a little more pop, but that's because of the Cascante situation. Fagundes isn't there, and then some guys aren't performing, that it can get thinned out pretty quick. But it's just like Austin it's frustrating, but there's signs that even in these struggles that they are kind of treading above water, and then if things fall well, they could do a lot better than that.
All right. Well, Max, thanks so much for joining us. It was a pleasure to talk to you. Like we said before, you'll be on the call this weekend with Brian Dunseth on Apple TV. And yeah, hopefully one day you'll get down to Austin and get to call a game here for Apple TV. And good luck on the rest of the season. And thanks for joining us.
I don't know why I haven't had an Austin home game. I might have to complain because I love it down there. I have friends in Austin. I have friends in New Braunfels, so I look forward to paying a visit at some point there. But it's a beautiful part of the country, and I'll bring my appetite and can't. I've been to the Q2. I just haven't called a game from there, and I got to cross that off my list.
Yeah, get your friends in New Braunfels to take you down to the river to float the river. That's a true Texan experience.
Count me in. That's what I'm looking for, Landon. I want people to go, look, that guy's a Texan.
Say y'all a lot.
Say y'all.
All right.
Don't make fun of Willie or Waylon.
That's right.
Drums.
That's right. All right. Thanks, Max. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.